Vtubers. Considering how far we are in internet history, chances are that a vast amount of people already know what they are, but just to contextualize, let's describe them as a type of creator whose content is delivered through a dynamically animated avatar. The different ways they make their content has led a huge number of people to gather around these creators, often forming extensive and supportive communities over time due to a strong sense of belonging synthesizing out of nowhere, to the point where an ideally non-affective bond between the creator and his viewers is established. Although the formation of a non-affective bond is not as frequent as it should be. On contrary, the curious intricacies surrounding said relationships are rather attractive to the inquisitive ones in the crowd, since just like with any other kind of entertainer, there's a tendency to fetishize these figures, in the sense that they are given this magical property about them that isn't really there. This implying that VTubers, just as much as regular streamers and other public figures, are often thought of with high regard and become focal points for emotions that shouldn't even be there in the first place, but exist nonetheless. This fact, in particular, bothers my thoughts as a VTuber fan from time to time. How does a person with no real connection to someone obtain such meaningful emotional response out of people? A very interesting case related to a VTuber came to my attention when analyzing this phenomenon. July 1st, 2021. It's been 2 years since, and it's safe to say some big events happened back in that day. But let's pay special attention to the subject of the matter here. The retirement of the woman that changed VTubing for the better. An event that, unsurprisingly, shook the entire community by the shoulders and would later become a referential point in internet history for many people. As such, it's nearly impossible to put in words how weird it feels to revolve around one's own thoughts and find the memories of that last stream and still be able to experience every emotion once more, even in the present day. But why? How is it that 2 years later, the aforementioned date still holds such significance to many? On this occasion, let's delve deeper into how impactful her departure from the big VTubing scene was, and the reason she's so greatly appreciated and remembered even to this day. My name is Inigo, and let's talk about Kiryu Coco, the art of being unforgettable. Kiryu Coco, the Yakuza dragon, was an ex-member of the renowned VTubing agency Hololive. She debuted within the 4th generation of talent in said company, alongside other well-known VTubers such as Tokoyami Toa, Tsurumaki Watame, Amane Kanata, and Himemori Luna. On a December 28th in the year 2019, with a rather touching, charming, and unique lore-driven introduction. This first stream would show a singularity that wasn't possible to ignore back in that day, and would give her that particular something that made her pop out over other VTubers, a proficient level of English in her content. From that point forward, she would only keep growing in terms of traction as she offered the thing that the audience lives and dies for, good times. In turn, the audience would pay back with the most precious things a viewer has to offer, their unparalleled love and their wallet. As such, the relationship built with her audience, which was to that point the broadest in terms of reach, as she had fans from several parts of the world, was so strong and compelling that it was just impossible to even hold a pinch of despise towards the dragon as a spectator. Later on, this appreciation of her viewers would prove so great that, as stated thousands of times by others before me, she settled down the foundation upon which a gateway to VTubing for a Western audience was built. In one way or another, causing Cover to release their first wave of English-speaking talents, as well as indirectly setting a golden standard for aspiring creators to reference their trajectories within the VTubing scene. After her debut, she would start picking up achievements and milestones like apples off an apple tree, starting with her reaching 200k subscribers in less than 2 months, which foreshadowed the impressive exponential growth that her career was about to experience. reaching 100 million on February 17th in the year 2021. This career of hers, although seemingly full of nothing but success after success, had its shortcomings. Namely, there was this notable bump in her walk down through the internet that's worth mentioning, as it was the biggest source of controversy surrounding not just Kiryu Coco, but Hololive as a whole. Her and a fellow talent Takai Hato being suspended on September 27th, year 2020 as a reprimand for some streams in which they displayed Taiwan as an independent country while looking through their channel's analytics, provoking anger among some members of the audience that didn't sympathize with this fact. Said suspension lasted 3 weeks, during which they were prevented from engaging in any kind of streaming or Twitter activities. A period of time during which it would later be known both girls were being victims of harassment from bad actors within the angered masses, as the worst of thoughts were being sent their way while they were out of action. Thankfully, and much to everyone's relief, both Coco and Hato tanked through all that hate, and on October 19th of that same year, the Yakuza Dragon would return to her content creation activities, noting that in her absence, the YouTube subscriber count had gone up to 700k, a way her audience had of showing their support during that whole debacle. This is all a very mediocre summary for her career, but the reason this is being brought up to attention is to contextualize and make the point that she would always keep going on very clear. Back then, it seemed as if she would never stop. The way she did stuff, her processes, now allows us to see into her. It's almost baffling how, on a very superficial level, this VTuber is often misinterpreted as a prototypic random XD, chaotic, and noisy kind of creator by some people within the community, but there's so much more to her than that initial layer many people decide to stay with. Truth is, and this goes unnoticed very often, she was the kind of person that, despite being all over the place, didn't make you uncomfortable. She had tact in her actions. Aside from the fact that, from a strictly business-like point of view, there is no doubt that Kiryu Coco was a very valuable asset generating some good cash for cover. But on a more elevated and less mundane perspective, Coco was a warm and welcoming person that would always do a bit more than what she could to get a smile out of you, whether you wanted it or not. From her interactions with her fellow Holo members, we can see the impact this has made within her friends. To explain why she had such force of attraction in terms of social relations and how easy it was to give to certain emotions, let's bring up the moment that has been burned into the memories of many and made some realize that maybe Coco was more than just an anime character moving on screen. The graduation stream. This live transmission consisted of her sharing some words with the rest of talents in Hololive, both juniors and seniors alike, a celebration of what Coco had done during her stay in the agency, with everyone reminiscing of fun moments and memories they kept of her. It was, overall, a tiny little thing that carried a lot of significance, since the moments that were being brought to the conversation were ones the audience could also look back on, earning a laugh or two as remembers of the good old times they had. However, a shift in tone happens at some point, particularly in the moment it was her genmate's turn. For clarification, generations are the batches in which agency VTubers debut under. This retroactively keeps them together and creates a strong bond between all of them. This scene alone, seeing the entirety of Gen 4 have a special moment near the end of the stream, would naturally evoke some strong feelings to everyone involved. One by one, each of Coco's friends rose up to deliver some speeches out of the letters they had written to her, everyone putting every wish towards the dragon out there. A pretty scene, all things considered. But then, it was Toa's turn to speak. Camera zooming in on her, she began to read her thoughts and feelings to the dragon, with the tone of her voice occasionally shifting in strength as her discourse slowly comes to an end.
いや結構相当ひどいよ。
結構相当
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 結構相当ひどいよ。じゃあ読ませていただきます。
はい。
ココへ手紙を書くのは久しぶりです。しかもね、渡す相手の目の前で読むのも初めてです。少し恥ずかしいけど読みます。まずココのことを第一に尊敬しています。いつもポジティブなところとか優しいところ、言葉のチョイスが面白いところと、いっぱいありますと。デビューしてホロライブを盛り上げたいと言っていて、それを実現させる力が本当にすごいなと思ってました。4期生それぞれデビューしてからいろいろ悩んでいたところをココがエンターテインメントとしてキャラクターを作ってくれたね。すごく助けられました。ダンス練習も楽しかった。ご飯も行ったりタコパしたり思い出がたくさんあります。ココの伝説はココが卒業してもずっと残っているし、みんなの記憶に残っていることだと思います。ココの卒業の話を聞いた時、驚きすぎて言葉が出てこなかったです。考えれば考えるほどやっぱり泣けたし、想像ができなかったかなって。しかもそして今でもできてない。ちょっと
わかる。
本当に明日からいないの？
ないな。ないかもね。
泣きそうでも、ずっとくよくよしてたり元気なかったらココは何しとんねんみたいな感じで怒ってくると思うし、4期生が4人という形になってもいつまでも4期生は5人で、4期生としてトワは頑張っていこうと思います。大好きなココ、プロライブを卒業しても遊ぼうね。ココの新しい道が明るくて幸せがたくさん満ちたものとなりますように、いつまでもずっとずっと願っております。ありがとう。常闇とあより。
Toa breaks down in tears, no longer being able to hold back anymore. This might be the part where everything gets stretched the most, being that this point is entirely synthesized from an interpretation of the events. In the West, spontaneous emotional outbursts, such as the one Toa had, are rare but accepted to an extent. This differs from the usual Japanese custom of avoiding being a nuisance in any way if possible. Toa, despite this custom, cried anyway, even though it wasn't the norm. To my way of seeing things, and I like to think I wasn't the only one who thought of it this way, they just showed how easily a potent connection between a person and Coco could be built, to the point of making ourselves override any way of imposition against expressing emotion. Toa, in the end, displayed her care for Coco. That was the moment where many clueless people could have thought to themselves, it's like they're saying their last goodbyes. And it's after that thought that the reality sets in. Yes, it is a last goodbye, and this is going to be the last time you'll see an interaction between the talent you support and her friends. Toa knew that. In just the same way she knew she was going to miss Coco a lot once she left Hololive, although she was sure it wasn't going to be the last time they would interact. It's safe to say that this very same feeling Toa had at that moment was being shared by most watching the stream. They weren't just seeing an entertainer stand down from her duties. They were seeing a person with whom they had shared a countless amount of good times bid them farewell. Just like Toa, they were seeing a friend waving goodbye at them with a smile on her face, prompting the audience's tears to come out as the dragon's last song is being performed. It's this reaction, the way the viewers responded to the possibility of their idol leaving for good, that allowed this instant to be a sign of the lengths a bond between streamer and viewer or idol fan can go. Almost unexplainably, it consolidated her as having this image of being an irrepeatable phenomenon of the likes we wouldn't see again. A talent that was a caring person first and an entertainer second, who always made sure that her fun was her friend's cause of joy. Looking back on Coco's graduation feels like glaring at a scar. Once there was a fresh wound, aching and bleeding, but time knew how to close and heal that same injury as days passed. But when you inspect it attentively, you still know you have been damaged at some point. You can recall very vividly the reason that scar is there in the first place, and you start to feel a very particular kind of pain, one surrounded in a mist of nostalgia. The reason I'm saying this is because although it has been 2 years since, and I know that the dragon is soaring through other skies, I can feel the proverbial scar that event left on me begin to pulsate every time I see her name or her model, as if I was still mourning someone dear to me passing away, even though I didn't know them personally at all. Deep down, and even though I don't want to admit it, Kiryu Coco was to me and many others more important than we'd like to, as evidenced by the reactions I've been analyzing from a superficial perspective.
たまには思い出さんかい？これがもう衝撃でさ、なんか胸に誓ったんだよな。忘れるわけねえだろ。だからたまになんかこう思い出したりとか。どうした？お前も同じ気持ちなのか？やっぱ忘れられるのが一番悲しいよね、なんか。
I believe in you. It was nuts because I was watching that live and there's some parts the chat was going so fast that it was literally lagging the stream.
I saw.
It was crazy.
I was just occasionally popping in and just seeing what was going on.
I mean, I didn't care much about like the whole like idol side of things because I've never really cared about the whole Hololive idol side of things or whatever. But like, there were parts where I was just like getting a little emotional. Honestly.
起きないつもりかお前。
おい起きろ起きろ起きるんだ。いい。今私は
起きて起きて起きて。会長だ。
Wrapped in a controversy that was no fault of her own and with coverage restrictions and mistakes following suit afterward, Coco decided that it was time to leave. However, despite that, Coco's brief existence was one of the most impactful and significant in the industry. Many people feel that her graduation was the end of an era, and in a way, that's pretty much true. But regardless, she inspired other VTubers that would found a new age. Her legacy remained and will continue to do so no matter what.
She was not just the random, chaotic, and noisy VTuber, nor was she just an entertainer, or just a co-worker. The Yakuza Dragon felt, in the end, like a friend. I imagine that if she could give her opinion about it, she would say there was really nothing too special about her and that anyone else could have done the things she did, be it her success with Hololive, the way she bonded with her peers, or the connection she made with her audience. Maybe those weren't as out of the ordinary at all. The thing is, though, it never feels like that's the case. Many still cherish every second of the streams they saw of her, and still remember her reactions to the stupid Reddit memes and her shitpost reviews, and still miss the character of Kiryu Coco. The reason for that being this weird inability to let go of those times. I guess you could say that one of her greatest achievements was that merely by accident, and through all the happy moments she gave to everyone, she became deeply ingrained within people's hearts. All things considered, to be unforgettable means that many people will be unable to stop loving the idea they have of you. And simply through being who and how she was, making others smile seemingly without effort and overall pulling us in inadvertently towards a maraud of good, charitable memories, she mastered that art.